Recording in progress.
4, 5. It looks like we have a quorum. So I think we can begin. This is the Norton Conservation Commission meeting beginning on Monday, February. I have the wrong item here. Oh, actually, it is February 13th. I tell you, anesthesia must.
Early happy Valentine's.
Right. So it's Monday, February 13th. What's that? I didn't quite get that.
Oh, I was just saying early happy Valentine's, Julian.
Oh, yes. Okay, great. So Monday, February 13th, 6:30 p.m. And as is our required obligation, we're going to begin by reading the preamble because of the fact that this is a Zoom meeting. So Dan, if you are able to do the honors, that would be fantastic.
Yes. Oh my God. Wait a minute. Don't. Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Well, I got it. If you don't have it, I got it.
Sorry, Julian.
Not a problem. All right. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, paragraph 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing / meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we were unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Norton Cable website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So we have tonight myself, the chair, Lisa Carrozza. I'm Julian Kadish, by the way. Lisa Carrozza, vice chair, Dan Pearson, Mark Fernandez, and Tom Vest as members of the commission. And we also have John Thomas, our director, participating. So we have, for new business, file number 250-261, obviously a very old filing concerning 376 Old Colony Road, and with a discussion concerning a wetland restoration and mitigation plan. Do we have a representative of the applicant? It looks like Ken Thompson is speaking, but he seemed to be muted.
Your audio is off, yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one who has to look around for things.
Okay, no problem.
I did find the preamble, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
Finally.
So is it possible, Mr. Thompson, that you're coming in by phone as well? Okay. Any progress? Because we can go on to another item and come right back to you.
I think you got to press *6 to unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go, Ken. Nope, still can't hear you. Can't hear you, sorry.
Maybe do we have okay. He's suggesting that we move on to the next hearing while he sorts out getting connected. So why don't we do that? Well, as soon as we get to the next item, we'll check back with you. Maybe I don't know if you have a phone number, John Thomas. Maybe you can maybe you can assist in getting him hooked in. So our next item is file number 250-1113, 0 East Hodges Street, map 36, parcel 2, and it concerns a proposed work to construct a single-family house, a barn, pool, stormwater management. And this is a project that has been before us a total of 8 times before. And do we have a representative of the applicant?
Yes, this is Mitch Maslenko with Goddard Consulting. I've also got Nick Fasandola, the engineer, working on the project. So I can share my site plans here, show you what our recent plan revisions were. So let me get those set up real quick. Okay, can you guys see that?
I can. I'm assuming everybody else can as well.
Awesome. Okay, so previously our project was proposing a house on an interior island, an upland island, that was separated from East Hodges Street by extensive wetlands. So the house used to be proposed somewhere over here in this buffer zone area within the 100-foot buffer zone. And it required a crossing that took the driveway from East Hodges Street down around the property corners and then over this bank over here, over to this small upland island over here, and then crossing over another set of bank onto this upland island. So we discussed with the applicant reducing the scope of the project to keep all the construction and proposed structures up towards East Hodges Street to avoid the need for a wetland crossing and multiple stream crossing box culverts over those intermittent stream banks. So what we came up with was we stuck in the house in this area where the old septic was going to be proposed. So the septic system, the leaching field, has now shifted over here. Previously, this was the area where a driveway was going to be coming through to take us over to the other upland island. But so we're utilizing this space here for the leaching field. We've got our proposed house in the old proposed septic area. We still have a pool proposed back here. It's a little blurry, so you can't really read. But behind the house is the pool. We've got our limit of work completely outside of the 25-foot no disturb zone. So that was another improvement on this set of plans, was the fact that we can stay outside of the 25-foot no disturb zone on top of staying out of the wetlands. And then up here, this is a proposed barn. So we kept all the same elements that were going into the original proposal as far as structures go, like the house, the pool, the barn, septic leaching field. There is one stormwater management structure underground that'll manage the stormwater from the house, and a significantly reduced driveway to come to the new house location. So, and then these are just gravel driveways coming up to the barn here. Disturbance is just below an acre. So a lot of the stormwater features were removed. That is the proposed project as of now. So a significant reduce in alteration to both BVW, which has been eliminated, and reduction in buffer zone impact. So we're hoping the commission finds this very acceptable plan, and let us know what you guys think and if you have any questions.
Questions from either our director or members of the commission?
Yeah, Mitch, have you guys been out there recently?
I have not been there recently, maybe a month or so.
I would suggest going out there right now and taking a look at the site.
Okay. Yep.
All right.
Any particular reason, or?
Well, there's a lot of water out there, so looks like there's a high water table for this site. So anything that you're doing, like for the pool, septic system, foundation, kind of stuff like that, probably want to think of potential issues with dewatering, foundational work. I don't know for the pool whether you're going to have to over excavate it or whatnot, put different material in. Same thing for the septic system. I know it looks like you're raising the grades up pretty substantially, like 6 or 7 feet there. But still, I would just double check with the pool.
Okay.
All right. And obviously, you're probably doing some groundwater monitoring too, just to kind of see for that. But it seems to me that, based on my observations out here, that it looks like the property is going to need a sump pump at least.
Okay. All right. Thank you for noting that, John. Appreciate it.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just had a few questions. But.
Well, are you considering a full basement in that house?
The proposal was to do a basement. Yeah.
That could be a challenge. Lisa, you had a question.
Yeah. So do you have a site plan that's a little clearer? I think this was a PDF that you just kind of blew up. It's really difficult to read.
Yeah, I was having trouble getting it up without it being blurry. So
Mitch, you want me to share my screen? I think I can get it a little bit clearer.
If you have the ability to, Nick. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can.
So the first question I have is if you have a sediment control line on here somewhere.
Yes, it's shown around the perimeter work. So Nick's plan will hopefully be
Okay.
a little more clear that he can show.
Oh, that's better.
All right.
There we go. Yeah.
So for the record, Nick Fassendole, Level Design Group. civil engineer for the project. So to address your question, the erosion control barrier / limit of work line is this X, this dark colored X line here, coming all the way through and around the perimeter.
Okay, so I think this clears up one of my questions. It looks like you have spot grades to the, I think that's the south side of the barn. I didn't know what those were on the PDF, those proposed spot grades. So I see that now. So were there impacts to riverfront and are there still?
No, so this took work outside the riverfront area, so no more riverfront area work is proposed. So when this site plan submittal, I provided an updated Wetland Protection Act Form 3, which said there's no riverfront area impacts and there's no BVW impacts.
Okay, and what is the length of the driveway there in terms of future snow plowing
That is,
and storage, which looks like it's going to probably go right into the drink, but
yeah, the driveway is about 250 feet long, 250 feet long, all the way wrapping up into the house.
right. So snow plowing is probably going to head right towards contour 95, right past the D box, probably.
Yeah, so this area right here in the front of the house is proposed to be cleared. It will just be lawn area. After construction is completed, just grade it off. We have a small little walkway entry right there. So yeah, the idea would just be to stockpile snow in this area right here in the front of the proposed dwelling. This is where I'm citing the proposed septic tanks, but they can kind of push that off to the side up through here. It's a nice clear path for them to remove the snow to a vegetated area.
Okay, so it looks like all the disturbed areas then are going to be lawn. Everything within the limit of work.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct, for the most part, other than the proposed structures, swimming pool area.
Okay.
We'll dial in the plan in the backyard area here. Maybe we can do some selective cutting within the area of the pool area, but for the most part, it would be mostly lawn area through this area, this side here, and then we'll keep a nice flat pathway through here, just lawn, in case there's maintenance required of the septic, the actual leaching field area. Tanks will be easily accessible for pumping and maintenance. It's going to be a pump system, so those can be maintained from the existing driveway, but we will have a clear path. It'll just be loam and seed. If there's work that needs to be done in the future, we'd come back to the commission for a notice to do any repair work on the final system if ever required.
So the only real lawn area that is behind the pool, is that why you're so far beyond the limit of the pool there?
Lawn area and keep leaf litter and have a nice little buffer for the pool so the pool can get sun is why we look to clear this area out here and around this side of the pool.
Okay, so John Thomas, do we have any permanent barrier around the entire limit of disturbance for this project? Because this is one of those out of sight, out of mind. We won't be able to ever see it from the street, and we have no idea what's going to happen in the back 40 at some point.
Yeah, I would say that that's something that if the commission decides to issue an order of conditions for this project, then put it in there as having some sort of permanent barrier in areas that are sensitive.
It's probably going to be, besides the property line, almost the entire way. So
one question I had for Nick is, so you have the Coltech system there, right? The subsurface Coltech system. Is that what you have there?
Yeah, Storm Tech, but essentially the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, Storm Tech.
No worries.
So I guess my only concern though is that we're dealing with groundwater, right? And that groundwater hits a certain elevation, let's say close to the surface, and this is, the system subsurface. basically once it reaches a certain elevation, you're basically draining that groundwater to that outlet or that flared end there. So, in light of that, if there are groundwater issues that you kind of encounter for this, my suggestion for this project would not be some sort of subsurface storm text system that you have here. It would be more like a constructed wetland that's purposed for stormwater management. I think that would probably be more beneficial if you are encountering any sort of groundwater issues for this site. So I would just take that in consideration as you look at this as an alternative.
Yeah, we can look into that. As you did state earlier, we are raising the grade through that area a few
Mhm.
feet, and we do have observed witness Title V testing in the area of this proposed house, so we feel like we have a good handle on where the seasonal high groundwater is. It was observed by
When were those done?
the town's agent 2 years ago, I believe.
All right, we need more information on that, more up to date, because there's surface water in those locations that you have the house, and also in the area where you have the proposed barn, and I think also in the area where you have the septic system. So that's my main concern right now is there's water at the surface, and that information needs to be collected. And I think as part of this project, that should be something that you're investigating with more up to date information for soil logs.
Yeah, no, we are definitely going to be doing some additional testing out in that area. We'll take a look at the exact area where the proposed system is and pop a hole in there. We are finalizing our scheduling for new Title V test holes in the proposed system. So the grading shown on this plan is essentially worst case scenario grading. That's if, say, groundwater was called at the surface. This system would technically work with that amount of fill. We're hoping that it's not going to be such a dramatic mound in the final septic system design plan, and that we'll be able to pull in the limit of disturbance a little bit more. But we are likely going to be doing testing in the next 2 weeks from what I understand, and we're just looking to finalize a date, get a machine out there. We've made the application to the Board of Health, paid the fee, so we're just working on the final scheduling of the additional testing in the area of the proposed leaching field here. As Mitch had stated before, the leaching field was initially proposed in this area where we did have 4 test holes, recently done within, like I said, 1.5 to 2 years in that area. So we will be out there with the machine. So we'll pop a couple extra holes on the way out in the area of this system and log those also, and provide that information to you. Maybe stick a pipe in there and do a little bit of groundwater monitoring too in that area.
All right, sounds good. And just so that we're all on the same page, I think we're very close to the 1 acre threshold on this project. I think, Mitch, you were saying that, we're very close, and, it would be best for this project if you could minimize the amount of disturbance just to make sure that you're under 1 acre for compliance with our local stormwater management bylaw.
Certainly. Yep.
Any more questions or comments? And I think at this point, if there are no questions from members of the commission or our director, there does seem to be a question on the board. So we'll go to Chris Polk. So you can just take your mic off mute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you well.
Okay, perfect. Well, there was a few things that I wanted to address, but a couple of them, I guess, got answered on the way. How do you want me to do this? Just like I had a bunch of questions I had written down. You want me to just go through them and answer them when I'm done, or?
Why don't you start one at a time? See what we got.
Well, the first thing was I wanted to know. It said that I saw that it stated it was under the stormwater management bylaw. I was curious by exactly how much. I mean, we talking a few thousand feet. How much under the bylaw is this project where it's not required?
It was 10 square feet.
10 square feet. So a 2 foot by 5 foot area. That's a pretty narrow window. Okay. My next question is the barn, the pole barn, is that gonna have a cement floor or is that gonna be a dirt floor, or do we know how that's gonna be? And I mean, I know you're stating that they're gravel and they're not paved driveways, but also that driveway going in and out of the pole barn in the beginning of the driveway, gravel is still pretty much impervious. That's why it's used as a driveway material.
So I don't believe there's any plans for what's going to be inside the barn as of yet, unless, Nick, did you design it thinking it was going to be a certain way?
No, I mean, I would assume it would have a concrete floor, just based on the type of structure. But like I said, there's been no building plans prepared. That'll all be handled during the building permit process. But I would assume for the time being, it would have a concrete floor.
All right. And again, like, this is a better thing than I saw. When I tried to zoom in on mine, I also went to the town hall to try to get a full scale map, and there wasn't one that was presented. But it looks like that septic is pitched right to my property line, and it's going to put water to my property line. And you did just mention that it's not finalized, and it looks like that's like 6 feet above grade too. So I just want to make sure that nothing's going to be, there's going to be, I don't know if you're going to put in some kind of swale or something's going to be in there. That water shouldn't be going to my property line, but it's also the way it's designed. It's going to be, all the water is in this whole project is designed to be pushed back into the wetlands.
That's correct. So the system, it's going to be a mound. So with with the septic system component in the middle, and there'll be a small area graded towards that northerly property line. There's nothing, there's no bylaw or anything that prevents that from occurring. It's going to be a grassed area. Should be minimal runoff, which would come off of that. Like I said, that's worst case scenario grading. We're hoping that the grade is actually a couple feet less. We'll be able to dial all that in once we have the final testing. This plan may change if for some reason it's determined that we cannot put the septic system there. We'd have to go back to our original location and possibly make modifications. But we feel confident we'll be able to site a system there. It will be a mound. It will be on a pump. We're hoping to limit the amount of disturbance and be able to pull some of that grading in and get a little bit further under the 1 acre threshold for disturbance. But yeah, that's small area towards the
But there is going to be
line is graded towards it would be towards your property. That's correct.
right, but you need to put in some kind of component so it doesn't get to my property, correct? It's not allowed to drain onto my property, is it?
I mean, Chris has a point, all right? So under the stormwater standards, right, you're not supposed to introduce sheet flow onto somebody off the property. So right now you're introducing at least 5 feet, right? It's just the embankment on that one side. But right now it's very gradual, right? It's from 93, and what's the grade of the property line? It's pretty flat.
Well, it's going
Relatively
from
flat, yes.
It's going from 98 down to 92 at the property line from what this states.
Right, so they're actually introducing sheet flow onto your property from that side slope.
Correct.
So I do think it warrants a swale or some type of level spreader or something. I mean, I understand you're pressed for room, which means you're trying to squeeze it in here without providing some space or, some area at the toe of that slope. Basically, you're grading on just about on somebody else's property line, and where you should be accommodating for some type of flat area so that it infiltrates prior to the property line.
We can take a look at that. It's like I said, we have to get the system figured out as far as the final testing goes. That's going to drive the elevation. We don't want to put more fill in there than necessary and clear more area than necessary. But we'll take a look at that. But overall, it's a very minimal area. It's a couple hundred square feet of grass, which would be draining in that direction. If you look at the property to the north, the entire property drains onto this site. So it's, I'll have to review the requirements of what's allowed when grading up next to a parcel for residential use.
Right, for new construction. And my next thing is, down where this pole barn is, I was at the town hall earlier, as I stated. I've lived here for almost 20 years now. I've never had water come in from this proposed project property onto my lot. And it happened on January 26th. Down by where the pole barn is, approximately 30 feet up from the road, it put the whole front part of my property underwater. They've built, I don't know, 7 to 12 houses in Taunton that's pushing water this way. So now you're putting in a pole barn and you're putting in this concrete floor. I gave John pictures. I emailed them to him earlier. I'm sorry, John, not to put you on the spot. I don't know if you got them, but I did send them. I can send them again if you didn't. But that is all underwater, and it was draining into my property. And I haven't had a chance to contact the owner about this, but I mean, I've never had this problem before. And the sump pump in my house has been running for a while too, just from all the groundwater. I know that John had stated in one of the previous meetings, when he walked the property and found that other bankage problem or whatever, he stopped and looked at the sonotubes that are in the ground there, and they were at groundwater level. So the pictures that I sent today, he was able to see the water literally coming into my property from this lot. And you're going to do all this building and no water management. I'm not going to tolerate water coming into my property. I mean, this is all new construction. This needs to be addressed now. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, you're outside of the no touch, but I mean, you're banging all the corners right into it. But I'm pretty sure, don't you need a special permit to be within the 100-foot buffer? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. I think if you're going to be doing a project this massive inside a 100-foot buffer, this project's over 90% still inside this 100-foot buffer. There needs to be some kind of water management system that I'm not going on. You're raising all your grades above my property, and it's going to push all the water that way. It's got nowhere else to go. It's already starting, and there isn't even anything there yet.
Nick, can I suggest that you run through the existing, do you have, I don't know if you have the HydroCAD report or you have the flows, but to show Chris existing drainage patterns and then proposed? I mean, if you're not.
I mean, essentially everything grades down towards the wetland areas. It's, so you have, these are all the existing contours, 91, 92, 93, 94, it's up through here, 95, kind of hard to see, up through this area right here.
What's the driveway at?
The driveway right here is 96 and a half.
What's mine at?
We didn't go onto your property and do any surveying.
But you raised that up. I mean, you can stand on my property and look and see that it's higher.
Yeah, I mean, we're increasing the grade minorly through there. It's about a foot and a half, up through that area.
Okay, so it's higher now. It's going to be a foot and a half higher, and it's going to be all completely impervious material. All that water is going where? It's going to go further uphill, or is it going to go downhill?
No, we have it graded to go towards this side of the driveway, towards this wetland. So the water is going to cross this 96 contour perpendicular. I can add a couple extra spot grades through here to show that it's going in that direction, but everything is essentially running this way towards the wetland on our own property. That's the goal as far as the impervious coverage of the driveway. And we're doing our best to keep the driveway as compact as possible. It's only 12 feet wide. And we can look at an alternative surface if the commission is really interested in that. But typically, you know, a 12-foot wide paved driveway is the easiest to maintain as far as snow removal goes. You know, we're not looking to have an 18-foot wide driveway running up through this area. 12 feet it's the minimum that we can propose, you know, for a useful driveway in that area. But the goal is to have, you know, this section of the driveway all go towards this way and everything kind of run down this way. I'll add a couple extra spot grades up through here to make sure we direct this water around the barn area.
Yeah, the water, if you're looking where this barn is now, it was between where the number 95 is in that gravel driveway and towards the barn, standing on my property, it looked like it was in that general area. And it was pooled water, literally running as a stream into my property and then heading towards the road. And it wasn't like, you could see it traveling sticks and leaves, and it was a current. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was really surprised. The amount of water that's in here, if you don't personally like walk it after it's been wet, you have no idea how much water goes through here. It's insane. And once it reaches its tolerance, it just travels above ground. I haven't seen below tolerance for months now. It's staying right near ground level the whole winter because we haven't been getting snow, we've been getting rain, but the ground is completely saturated. There is nowhere for the water to go. And I do not want to go underwater from this project. I shouldn't. This is new construction. It's not existing. It's not something, that you're trying to repair or fix or add on to. This is a completely new project. I mean, I didn't impact you guys, and I don't want to be impacted from you. Fair is fair.
So I just want to ask, if we go to the septic mound there for the leaching field, what is the slope on that? Is that 3-to-1?
Yeah, it's 3-to-1.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Polk, do you have additional questions, comments, or are you all set?
Well, I mean, like I said, honestly, I mean, if this requires a special permit because this entire project is in a 100-foot buffer, I really want to see a serious water management to make sure I'm not impacted. I mean, I really want to be guaranteed about this because I'm nervous about the amount of water that's just come onto my property. And this is without a tree coming down, a road going in, nothing.
Yeah, with regard to, just because it's in the buffer zone really only triggers review by the commission. It doesn't actually trigger any kind of special permit. So that's why it's being reviewed. I mean, I think you're right. You made the point that this is an area, and I think John Thomas made the same point, that this is an area with a high water table, and it's potentially going to be a challenge to build on it, and that's abundantly clear. And I don't know. This is another one of those projects where you scratch your head and hope the person who buys the house doesn't have problems.
Buys it, all the people that already been there paying the taxes on it. It's just like I said. I mean, we would all love to have a huge swimming pool, but does this project really, with the amount of impact that's going on in this area? I mean, a house and a garage, yeah, a house, a garage, a pole barn, a swimming pool. I mean, it's just.
Well, but you have to realize that as a commission reviewing the project, our limit of decision making is it consistent with the requirements of the Wetland Protection Act? So I agree putting an in-ground pool in an area where there is very high water table, particularly if there are times when the pool gets pumped empty, and the water table can potentially cause it to bob up out of the ground, depending on exactly what kind of structure it is. That's a potential problem, and they'll have to review whether an above ground pool is no full basement is the more logical way to go. But we're restricted with our review with regard to the stipulations of the Wetland Protection Act.
Are you required to make sure that I'm not impacted?
We are required to do that.
Okay.
And
Okay,
and that's why there's a very pointed discussion about the fact that as this is designed, that mound, it is not consistent with the requirements of the Wetlands Protected Act, and I think that it's going to be adjusted.
All right,
Uh,
one last thing.
Yeah.
I know that the septic isn't done and it's not finalized and everything else, but his components are within 100 feet of my well. They can't be where they are. So I figured I'd throw that in there too.
Well, actually, I was looking at that, and that's something that technically is Board of Health, but I mean, technically, I guess this is a question for you.
That's under stormwater management too, by the way, just so we were all aware.
Oh, it is, okay. But the fact that the ring of the 100-foot doesn't actually touch the trenches area, the trench area of the leaching field, does that mean?
You're talking about the leaching field. I'm not talking about the leaching field.
Well, where are you talking?
Where he has his septic tank and his pump system, that's 50 feet from my proposed well and probably 80 feet from my existing well, because I'm moving my well.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say, I don't know the rules here.
He has to be over 100 feet.
Even with a sealed tank?
Yep. They're not allowed to have a component, because when I just did my septic, I had to redo my original design because my tank was 92 feet from my well, and because they considered it new construction, I had to redesign it and have it moved 8 feet out. I actually moved it 10 feet, but I had to move it out because I was within the 10 foot, the 100 foot. So they can't have those components there. And that was from the Board of Health. And I just did mine this summer.
So Nick, you don't have Board of Health approval yet?
No, we do not. No, I mean, we're just starting the process with that location, and we'll iron out those details. As far as the components go, we can have the tank in the pumping chamber come out in the back right here. There's plenty of space for it. I'm not concerned of having those components in that area possibly. They're all sealed components, but if the agent prefers them in a different location, then we'll address that accordingly.
So is your preference to keep this hearing open until you get Board of Health approval?
I think it would make sense, in all honesty. I typically don't like to drag things out, but given that the grading of the leaching field could change, and we're going to be going and doing some additional testing, like I said, if for some reason the testing doesn't work out in that location, then we're going to be redesigning, and we'll be back with a different layout. Probably flip-flop the house and put the septic back where it was originally proposed, where we have approved Title V testing in that area, and do a mounded system in that area. But I think it makes sense to keep the hearing open. I mean, I'll let Mitch comment on that, but we do have a little bit more legwork. Hopefully we can get all this wrapped up by your next hearing, and have the septic system designed based off the new testing.
Yeah, I mean, if those components can be moved behind the house, that would be huge, because then it's away from me. So, but we need to know where that's going to go.
Another question. Yeah, there's another question on the board. So, Chris, if you're all set, we'll go to David. So, David, you have your hand up, and it looks like your phone is on.
Oh, there we go. Is that better?
Yeah, just identify yourself and where you're located.
Hi, this is Dave. I live over on Connie Street. I've been on these meetings, most of them, and just a couple of things just during the discussions came up. One of them, I think, Lisa, you were talking about snow removal. We've been fortunate this winter not having to deal with snow removal, but looking at the length of that driveway, if they're plowing the driveway down in front of the house, you got a 12-foot wide driveway. I think Nick had said maybe about 250 feet long. if you get a half an inch of snow or half a foot of snow, you're looking at about 66 yards in one plowing just getting dumped, cubic yards of snow dumped in the front of that house. A couple of snowfalls like that, you've got a massive mound. Now you've got all that melt water that's got to go someplace. Is that going to impact Chris's yard and his well water, especially if you have any treatment down on that driveway? If you get a private person coming in and salting that or putting any type of treatment down, what's that going to do to the groundwater where he's got his wells?
Yeah, for this one, we're probably gonna not have any sort of de-icing chemicals allowed. That'll probably be a condition because of the sensitivity. Try to answer that question for you.
Right. But you get a snowfall of a foot, then you got, almost 120 cubic yards of snow that have to melt somewhere, and it's all plowed in front of the house.
Right, and I think
And
that's yeah, it's definitely something to take into consideration. Because we need to account for the worst scenario possible. So for snow storage areas, there shouldn't just be one location; there should be two.
Right.
At
And
least.
once you get a saturated ground, and as Chris was saying, just with rain, we've seen it here. We've got wet winters. We've got a lot of snow followed by a wet spring. There's not going to be anywhere for that water to go to, even in a leaching field. So you're going to get more standing water. It's just going to overflow it.
Right. Seems like the applicant needs to take a look at that as well.
And, I know that they had talked about having that east-facing opening for the pool to get sun to the pool, but that's not really going to happen around here. All the sun comes from the southeast. By the time the sun comes up, especially if they got white pines in there, you guys are not going to get any sun on that pool whatsoever. It's going to be shaded almost permanently.
Well, all right. So it sounds like we definitely have to continue. I mean, just from my own perspective, I'm curious as to what the results will be in the area of the leaching field, and so unless there are other specific issues, other issues to be brought up, we can consider a motion to continue. Chris, do you have one last question?
Sorry, yeah, I do. If they move the house like they just stated, isn't that going to increase what they're impacting by moving the driveway, or no? Would that put them over the 1 acre where they
Well,
would
I
do the
think
management?
Chris, at this point, I don't want to speculate. We're just going to go off of what they're proposing at this time. Obviously, it's in their best interest probably to be more conservative with their approach and account potentially for it being over an acre. But it's the applicant's decision as to kind of which way they want to proceed. 10 square feet is a very small margin, so they should probably be a little bit more conservative with their approach. In addition, my other concern that I have for this is the access to the septic system. It's a very bottleneck kind of at that location where your property line is there, Chris, and also the 25-foot. So they should probably take a look to see if that's enough sufficient space for them to work within when they do the construction. And if it is, they should probably prioritize doing the septic system first to not overcomplicate their project.
Okay. Yeah, because this honestly is probably the least impacted system that they could put out there for, well, if you take away a pool, you could do, by removing structures, you could make it smaller, but if you move that, you're going to put more impervious ground, increasing that driveway and everything. It would make things, I think, a lot worse than better. But, all right.
Okay, so unless there are further questions, comments, I think we can consider a motion to continue. Our next meeting coming up is the 27th of February. After that, it's the 13th of March. So I'm assuming the applicants would be happy with the next meeting.
Yep, works for us.
All right.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for file 250-1113 to the February 27th.
Motion made by Lisa and seconded by, was that Dan?
Second.
Seconded by Dan. Roll call vote, beginning with Dan and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And then we have Tama and Mark
Aye.
Aye.
and Ron.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. So I just want to do a couple of information items. Since the meeting began, Ron O'Reilly joined us as a member. And Mark, I'm not sure if I mentioned your name at the beginning or not. I know you were here from the beginning of the meeting, but I can't recall if I called you out as attending. So we temporarily. Say again?
Julian, we have a comment. We have a comment on the meeting chat
Okay.
from a Crystal. Please request applicant to include Connie Street abutters back on the map as we were removed from the newest plans.
Okay. So I don't.
We already
Well,
continued. John, can you just contact them tomorrow? Okay.
all right. So
Thanks, Dan.
Sure thing.
so we had temporarily put aside file number 250-261, 376 Old Colony Road, and Mr. Thompson, have you succeeded in solving your technical problems there? We're still not hearing you.
No.
Yeah, we're not hearing anything. We're seeing your lips move, but nothing's coming through.
Press *6 on your phone. That should unmute you. No.
No, not working.
In the words of the poet, your lips are moving, but we can't hear what you're saying.
Which poet was that?
Pink Floyd.
Oh, really? Okay, all right. There are a lot of things I've missed in this life.
He wants to continue. He wants to continue to the next meeting for him. Looks like.
All right, that's a fair thing, and maybe okay. So we'll all be here. Thank you for your efforts tonight, and we'll take up the discussion on this on the 27th. Okay, so our next item is 0 Hill Street. And from what I could read in the record, that we've kind of come to a consensus. I just had a question. There was a term of mounded groundwater in the last discussion, and that hasn't been something we've talked about a lot. I'm assuming there was a thought that there might be an area of decreased percolation, which would cause the groundwater to be higher there. Is that what the discussion was about, John?
I'm gonna let Mr. Dryden answer those questions because he's the expert when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Sure. Happy to. For the record, Michael Dryden, Senior Project Manager, Allen Engineering. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can.
Yes. So, Mr. Chairman, to answer your question, what we had talked about at the last meeting is the amount of stormwater volume that the peer review consultant was asking us to infiltrate and model into the basin, which was 12 times greater than what we're required to do under DEP stormwater management regulations. So, again, I assert that we've met the regulations. We are modeling the correct amount of water per the regulations. I demonstrated that to the commission during the last hearing. So what we discussed at the last hearing was that was the only item that we took exception to. Everything else Mr. Chesia is asking us to do, we are happy with and willing to agree to.
All right. And I mean, we have a draft of an order of conditions. So, John, were there other issues that need to be talked about here, or is this time when we can close the public hearing?
So I think we've received everything that's going to be presented to us and the commission can close. I believe before we close, Mr. Dryden, I did provide him a copy of this order of conditions just to run through with him to see if he was comfortable with kind of what we discussed and we were all on the same page. And he had some comments. Mike, do you want to bring those comments to the board's attention? Or
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, John. What we had discussed with the vice chair at the last meeting was she felt it important to at least acknowledge Mr. Chessie's findings, and I thought that was perfectly acceptable. I just wanted to make sure that the way those findings are presented in the order, they don't read as conditions. I just want to make it sure that it's very clear as to which conditions we're accepting, and then again, that one condition that we took exception to. Because the way it read, John, respectfully, is it seemed that it was a strict order of conditions to include those 5 or 6 items. And again, we're okay with all of them except for that one regarding mounting analyses.
So I'm going to actually share up my screen. Just give me 1 second. I can't yet because I haven't closed it, but I will when the commission has discussions for the order of conditions, because I'd like to go through that and just make sure I have the language correct for the recording with the Registry of Deeds.
So, Michael, I'm sorry, which one was it? 9A, B? No,
Yeah, it was 9. So I had recommended that A be deleted, but as currently written, it's D. It's 9D.
D. Okay.
But I mean, is it fair to say, as I recall, this related to the fact that there were not test pits exactly where the system, the infiltration system, was designed to be placed, and that was going to be something that was going to be potentially addressed. So this whole issue of mounding is perhaps more theoretical in nature.
Well, we're talking about 2 different things, Mr. Chairman. The 9B addresses the testing that was not originally, or that originally was located within the open basins. And as you'll recall, we moved the basins up gradient in a subsurface fashion. That's why there's a condition for additional soil testing. We have no issue with that. That's a separate issue from the mounding analysis.
Well, all right. I mean, I'm just not sure exactly what part of the plan this mounding event is thought to be occurring in, and I mean, this is new discussion for me, and this was an extensive discussion last time.
Yes, it was.
And it looks like from Lisa's expression that it was a frustrating discussion.
No, it wasn't frustrating at all. I thought we met a great compromise. So John Chessia made a comment that was above and beyond stormwater standards based on his experience. The applicant met the burden of proof, meeting the stormwater standards. So I think the compromise that I suggested was to just articulate that difference. So we get it on the record of what the peer reviewer suggested versus what was proposed. And I think we do need to tweak D, because D makes it sound like they still owe us something in terms of the mounding calculation.
Right. So I'm actually just taking exactly what you just said, Lisa, and typing it up.
Okay.
So I'm just going to present
I think it was in the minutes. I mean, I think it was right there in the minutes. Now, I haven't gotten the minutes, but I think the minutes reflect that you said that, Lisa.
Yeah. So I think we can maybe go over it when we review the conditions for issuance.
All right. Well,
but we will fix it, Michael. I mean, I agree. It's not, but that wasn't the intention. So it's still this is just a draft for us to review.
Yeah. Understood. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Well, we can discuss it more when we go over, but it was, so there is a very clear stormwater requirement that is met. And then there was another discussion on top of that. Okay. All right. So if there's no further comments, then we're all set to close this. Is that your opinion, John?
I would say that it can be the commission's decision to close this. Yeah.
Okay. You should be in politics. Well, you kind of are.
What's that?
He's non-committal. I'll commit. I'll make a
All right.
motion.
So before we entertain the motion, I guess anyone in the audience, any questions, comments? If not, we can entertain a motion to close the hearing for file number 250-1108.
I'm not trying.
I'm sorry, I was trying to raise my hand, but I couldn't.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Amy Conley from 61 Hill Street.
Yeah.
I'm confused on, because I read the order of conditions. So are we saying that that's going to change now?
Yeah, that was a draft.
What you read, the draft.
The draft.
And yeah, from the discussion that you just heard, I think there's some items that are going to be changed because the issue is that there are stormwater requirements which were met by the design, but then peer review offered an opinion which was not, which was far more conservative than the letter of the stormwater requirement. So that's going to have to be modified in some way in the text of the draft. I don't know if that helps.
I guess so. I guess there's the draft will move from a draft to a final phase. I guess this is the chance to speak publicly. I guess if there won't be another opportunity to do so.
Yes, yep. You would have to speak prior to closure.
Okay.
So if there's anything you'd like to ask or say so, I would do so now.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly not a wetland engineer by any means, but I from that last meeting, I don't know why. I mean, it would be nice if I understand why Mr. Chessier can't be here, but to answer the questions as to his side and why he put what he did on his response. But from the comment at the last meeting, it was, well, if it fails or then the applicant will be held liable and we'll have to fix it. And the town won't be held liable. I don't know why we put those kind of things. And if we've been warned by a peer reviewer, I don't understand why. I guess I understand he's taken the conservative approach, but why not go with his approach? I guess is my question. Why not go the conservative route based on Chessier's response? I mean, what's the downside of that? What is the harm with going that way?
We do not have the authority to not grant approval for a project if they meet all the minimum requirements. So the issue at hand here is Mr. Chessier is bringing up another additional conservative approach, which he suggests, but the applicant is not required to meet that approach. They're only required to meet the minimum requirements for the stormwater standards, which Mr. Dryden has met for this project.
Yeah, and let me just emphasize that the requirements, stormwater requirements, are not just arbitrary, picked out of the hat. There is a degree of engineering involved. And so when somebody requests a more rigorous or conservative or I'll use the word expensive approach, the added value of that suggestion is not necessarily a proven quantity. And I'm going to say, you know, I'm not a stormwater professional. In fact, I'm not a wetlands professional, but I have 40 years of experience reviewing these things. And I'm going to say this, to my eye, is a pretty well designed system for the size of this project. I don't have any personal concerns that I will ever see a problem here. And you know, Lisa, you're obviously closer to the details of the wetland, of the stormwater management systems. And if you want to offer, if you're willing, I don't want to put you on a spot, but if you're willing to say you're comfortable with it,
I'm comfortable. Yeah, I'm comfortable with it because all parties have acknowledged that it meets the requirements. It meets the standards. Mr. Chesia, I have the most regard for him. It's his job to make sure it meets the standards, and he's on the record as saying it meets the standards. However, he's applying a very conservative approach that he has used in the past. And it's I'm not going to say it's arbitrary, but you can't just apply something much more stringent than the regulations on a project. I mean, he's never brought it up, to my knowledge, in the past. A peer reviewer gives the Conservation Commission information so that we can make an educated vote. And that's exactly what he did. He did his job. He said it meets the standards. And I'm comfortable personally voting on that. I don't know if that helps, but you wouldn't just arbitrarily apply some very conservative approach to a project just because you had that experience on one project. It would be very different if the regulations required it, but they don't. So I guess that's the difference.
I understand what you're saying, and it's, you know, from reading Chesier's letter, though, it's not written in the sense, you know, from a conservative approach. I'm just reading what, and I said, I'm not an engineer, but when you read this, it said that the commission will need to make a determination on the aspect of the applicant's engineer in disputing the above comments. If the commission disagrees with the engineer, a condition requiring that the analysis be updated could be required if the mound impacts the design. Refiling revised plans with the commission could be required. I mean, that doesn't sound like he's just saying that, you know, if you disagree, I guess you're saying you don't disagree with what, I'm just, from someone on the outside reading his comments, it's not saying, well, I'm, you know, going to take the conservative approach and explain what I'm thinking. He's saying there's a dispute here between the engineer and what he's recommending. And from the outside reading in, I understand what you're saying, but it's not written that way. It's not written like, I'm going to take the conservative approach and go this route. It's almost like it's not meeting a standard based on the valuation that was used. But I mean, that's just my public comment. I didn't like last week where it was like, well, let's just make a note that says, you know, if that 100-year thing does happen, that the town's not liable, and the applicant will be.
That's a misrepresentation of what was discussed, respectfully.
But
that was the premise last week, was that it was going to be noted that the town would not be liable should something happen. If that's the conversation I do remember last week, correct?
And that is the absolute truth. And you can say that for every single project that comes before this commission and the planning board and any other board of volunteers. So we make our decision based on the law and the regulations. If the project meets the law and the regulations, it's our obligation to approve it. If something fails on a project site, you look to that project plan and you look at the stamp on that, and it's the Massachusetts licensed professional engineer that has the liability if anything goes wrong, not the town.
But I think we have to emphasize that these requirements are based on a lot of science. You know, there's an awful lot of science that has to do with the amount of runoff that is going to occur from a given surface, and you know, the probability that there will be a rain event, that will exceed the expected runoff, all of that. And so that's what the system was designed to meet. And as I say, I'm comfortable with that. Now, I admire Mr. Chesia, but I'm going to say sometimes his personal opinion may be above and beyond what the requirements of the law are. And, we can't obligate an applicant to abide by a very cautious personal opinion. And it just in turning around to a personal project that you may carry out. If you were building an addition and the building inspectors told you, well, yeah, this would do it, but I think you need to double up everything as far as the supports go, you would say, well, where's that coming from? And so that's kind of the way I look at it.
And Mr. Chairman,
So I don't know if I've helped your concerns, but I think a lot of us have a lot of experience on this commission, and I'm comfortable with it, and I think everyone else is too.
So one last thing that I wanted to, I guess, propose to the commission is that, so this project is under the acre requirement. I guess the question is, I put in here for a courtesy SWIP because, it's very close to the acre, but they're not required to provide one because it's not more than an acre. So, I guess that's kind of a discussion item for the board for this project as well. I know that it's not required, just to kind of
just to clarify for the audience, define a SWIP, please.
Stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Okay.
So John, I think there's a misnomer in this industry. Just because you don't require SWIP and you trigger the 1 acre does not mean that you don't have to prepare a robust set of erosion sediment control plans. So as far as I'm concerned, if there's a set of plans in here that gives sequencing and gives not only erosion prevention, right? We want seeding rates, we want the temporary 14-day stabilization, the same parameters as EPA would afford us on a set of plans. So there's no reason not to have a subset erosion sediment control plans in the set. So if that's what we want and it's not part of this set, perhaps we can condition it.
So I guess if that's what the applicant and the commission is leaning towards, then we just need to make sure that we can condition that properly in the order of conditions.
Yeah.
if I could just quickly, and I couldn't agree more, Lisa, sheet 7 of 7 is just that. It's a erosion and sediment control plan with details, construction staging areas, stockpiling areas, construction entrance, seating requirements, everything you just mentioned.
Okay, does it have that, the 14-day,
I don't want to misspeak on that.
okay. I mean, that's a quick note to just add.
You said it was sheet 7?
Yes, if it does not specifically say that, we're happy to add that via a condition.
Okay. And are there any concrete pours?
I'm sorry?
Is there any pouring of any concrete?
Yes, for foundation and slab.
Okay, so you might want to put a concrete washout detail. So what I would do is just beef up the plan set to perhaps have sequencing, the normal sequencing that
We have that.
Okay.
Yep.
So you might want to just add some details and some seeding rates and then the 14 days to that set.
Happy
And
to
that
do
can take the place of a SWIP. It doesn't need to, you don't need the full-blown document for a contractor to follow it. So,
Happy to do that.
okay.
All right, so it sounds like we could entertain a motion at this time to close the public hearing for file number 250-1108.
So moved.
Motion made by Lisa and seconded by?
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Tama. And this is going to be interesting for a roll call vote because we have two Dan Pearsons on the screen, although one seems to be rather.
I had computer problems, yeah.
There we go.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, so starting with Mark and Tama, how do you vote for closing?
Aye.
Aye.
And Lisa and Dan.
Aye.
Aye.
And Ron.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, the motion carries. I think in the light of everyone waiting for their hearing, that we won't take up the order of conditions until later in the meeting. And Mike, thank you for participating. And our next item is,
Thank you.
0 West Main Street. Oh, no, I skipped over one. Determination number 1130, 353, 355 Old Colony Road. Do we have a representative of the applicant?
Good evening, Commission. I'm Frank Rivalin, land surveyor. I am here representing this particular project, the 353, 355 Old Colony Road. This was a request for determination of applicability. The vast majority of this project lies outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, and the buffer zone was established in accordance with a previous filing that the Commission did to establish the wetland line. Currently, there are no wetlands at this location on our side of Old Colony Road. The wetlands that we're applying for the request for determination regard wetlands that are located on the opposite side of the road. We were before you previously, and at that time we requested a continuation of this public hearing to give us time to finalize plans with the planning board, make sure that everything was satisfied with the planning board, and also give us time to get the required stormwater management permit. That work has been completed. We do now have the stormwater management permit, and the planning board last week voted to approve the site plan. The plans that they voted to approve are virtually identical to what you were originally submitted to you. They were enhanced a little bit with some landscaping. We added a little bit more landscaping features. The only thing that changed within the 100-foot buffer zone was we added some additional siltation control barriers. We had not previously placed siltation control along the edge of pavement of the existing access drive, and we have added that now. That's just barely inside of the 100-foot buffer, but that was the only addition or change within the 100-foot buffer. So at this time, I would ask if the board has any questions for us.
All right. I mean, this was a project with very limited impact with regard to wetlands protection. So, John, so all the issues have been resolved and we can consider closing if there are no questions?
Yeah, it's gone through all the procedures, peer review, stormwater, and the peer review consultant's completely okay with the project as it was been explained by Frank here. So the commission is comfortable to issue a negative determination if they do desire.
And prior to that, we can consider a motion to close this hearing for file number, determination number 1130.
I would move to close it.
Second.
We have a motion made by Tama and seconded by Dan. So a roll call vote beginning with Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye.
And Dan and Ron.
Aye.
Aye.
And Mark.
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. If I would agree that this should be a negative determination, assuming it's carried out according to plan. If somebody wants to offer a quick motion, we can dispense with it and then move on.
So moved.
All right, I think Ron beat you out there, so
That's
motion
all
by
right.
Ron, seconded by seconded by Dan. So again, roll call vote, starting with Tama and Lisa,
Aye.
Aye.
and Dan and Ron,
Aye.
and Mark,
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. So the project can be carried out according to plan without having to file a notice of intent.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Frank.
Our next item on the agenda is file number 250-1122, notice of intent for 0 West Main Street, which actually is this the project across from Oak Street? Yes. Okay. So they have requested a continuance.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion made by Dan and seconded by Lisa for continuing this project and the hearing for this project until the 27th of February. Roll call vote starting with Tama and Lisa,
Aye.
Aye.
and Dan and Ron,
Aye.
Aye.
and Mark,
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. The motion carries. And now we have file number 250-1119 for 0 South Washington Street. Do we have a representative of the applicant?
They requested a continuance late as well. So
Okay, for the next meeting, I'm assuming.
that's correct.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Dan and seconded by Lisa for continuation of file number 250-1119, starting with Tama and Lisa. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Dan and Ron,
Aye.
and Mark,
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. Motion carries. And now we come to Town Hall Project, file number 250-1121. And do we have we do have a representative of the applicant?
Hello all, Scott Lindgren with VHB, here representing the applicant, the town of Norton.
Okay.
For the project.
Now, I have to apologize. I was not able to attend the last meeting, but in reviewing things, it appears that there was discussion addressing issues with the peer reviewer and continuing discussion since then. And as I understand it, pretty much everything has been resolved. Is that a fair summary?
Correct. We had a few back and forth with the peer reviewer discussing some of their comments and satisfying each of them. They sent a final review letter to the town noting that we had addressed all their concerns that they had written for this project. And we have filed the updated documents with the commission.
Any questions, comments? John, you happy with everything you've received?
Everything to me looks good unless the commission had any questions.
And no questions from members of the audience, including the 2 Dan Pearsons that are on the board. So it's my understanding then that we can potentially consider a motion to close this public hearing for file number 250-1121.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Lisa, seconded by Tama. So again,
Second.
you were
Sorry.
you were off in the ether, so
Sorry about that.
no problem. So Tama and Lisa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And now Dan and Ron
Aye.
and Mark,
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So the motion carries. Thank you, Scott. And we actually have, although it's not on our agenda, we actually have a draft order of conditions that we can discuss in a bit.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So one further item, I think, Tama, you probably got the email about signing a Mullins form.
Yeah, I have it printed and it's sitting here. I just haven't turned it back in. Sorry about that.
Well, and I have to submit the same for I believe the Hill Street project as well as the Town Hall project. And quite frankly, tonight I feel like been there, done that for the past meeting as well. So I'm going to be signing my Mullins forms and sending them in. So our next item is the Hill Street order of conditions. So we've partly discussed this, and you know, so there was a discussion of modifying these areas that are kind of have the gray background, which I guess it's in.
So I added some text to get us started with conversation. You know, one of the questions was with 9A, and I think Mike Dryden had a question about that with that John Chessier recommended a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and we just discussed just having a beefed up version of the site plan as Lisa recommended. So I guess maybe I should throw an adjective in front of that, a comprehensive. I guess that's a good.
Or exhaustive.
Well, so John, there's a couple of things here. I really don't think we need the intro to 9 as recommended by Chesia, right? This is just an order. Okay. So it's a directive.
Yeah.
So I would strike the intro, and number 9 should say the applicant shall provide a final erosion prevention sediment control plan for review and approval prior to the start of construction. Right?
So you don't want to add any of John Chessier's comments in here. You would just want to basically.
No, I do, but I wouldn't preface this whole thing. I mean, our order has nothing to do with him. I would strike as recommended by Chessier Consulting.
Well, you know, I'm not sure we have to be that specific. I mean, we gained a lot of insight into the details of the system by the peer reviewer. And again, I would agree with Lisa. We're just issuing an order. We don't have to necessarily specify in the order that there was a lot of detailed discussion as to exactly how this system would work. I would just keep it simple and stick. Yeah, go ahead.
9 should be provide a copy, or strike as recommended by Chessier Consultant. Peer review recommends, right? And start out 9 should be applicant shall provide a copy of the whatever we want to call it, final plan, final erosion prevention sediment control plan to the commission for review and approval prior to start of construction. Right? Okay. Okay, so that's 9. And then did they already give us an O&M?
I'd have to double check my
Okay.
info.
Okay. So check the O&M, and that should read the same way, right? All right, so the commission finds that. I would just say the applicant shall provide. Okay, and then,
You want to copy and paste and say O&M here too? Is that what you want
Yeah.
to do?
yeah,
I mean, it's in the later sections as well, but I'll just reiterate it then.
okay. So prior to, all right, so the next one, we're asking them to perform a minimum of 2 additional test pits or soil evaluations.
Yep.
So are we asking for those results?
I think that's something that was decided at the last meeting, was that's what we wanted them to do, correct?
Yes, but so they have to do it, but where is the information going? Is it going back to us? Is it going back to Chesia for review? What are we doing with that info when we get it?
So I think what we should do is ask them to same thing as this,
Okay,
and then we can just, if we need to kick it back to John Chesia, if the soil is
Okay.
different than what is shown, we can do a cross analysis. If it's similar, then for instance, I think we're good to go because all the data should be consistent. But if there's any inconsistencies with the soil textures and layers, then I think then, for instance, John Chesia would need to get involved. But I don't think that's going to be the case. It's just basically for them to prove it to us.
okay. So same condition. The applicant shall provide
Yep.
for review and approval prior to starting construction. Let's see. Okay, so 9C, sorry,
9C, which was the bounding.
no, it was B.
So this one goes away.
Well, no, you want to keep some of that, right? Because it says witnessed and all that.
Oh, it's going to be witnessed. Yeah, needs to be
Yeah,
witnessed.
so I would just keep that and just make that part of 11.
So then just keep this as, I'll just make this an A.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just expanding on it. Okay. So now this next one, the next A, the applicant should revise the data on the plans to match the calcs. Was that just a housekeeping item they were taking care of?
I think so.
Okay, so again, we want to tie these to a milestone. So I would say prior to start, the applicant shall provide, right, for review and approval prior to the start of construction.
Yeah, I have final plans in there, but this will be more detailed here. So
Okay. Okay. So along that same vein. Okay. So, okay. The next one is where we go off the rails.
And
Okay.
can I just ask? I'm trying to get in my mind. I mean, I'm gonna say I've never seen the term mounding calculations in an order of conditions before. So, and I'm trying to get in my mind the dynamics of it. Does this refer to, as water is going through the system, that groundwater becomes higher and perched in that area, or what? How would you explain this?
Basically, I mean, I don't know what, I'm not an expert, but I do know that it has to do with the groundwater elevation. So you have to design your system for separation, so you get infiltration.
Right.
So a lot of people, if there are mounding calculations that you have to do to prove that the high groundwater won't come within that separation that's required. So,
But you know, as water is soaking into the ground, where do you call it groundwater versus water soaking through the ground during a dynamic rain event? And
those are
that's
two different things. One's hydrology, one's coming from rainfall. The other one's just the influence of the high groundwater table. So you have those two things converging. But anyway,
right.
the mounding, I think, was the issue.
But that's what I'm having trouble with, because mounding implies, the way it's a separate word, that it sits there, as opposed to it's a dynamic situation in which you will have, you know, the groundwater comes up and it may not be completely level until things settle into the ground and the whole system equalizes. But so that's why I just don't understand this terminology. I've never seen it before. And,
Oh, I've seen it a thousand times. I mean, I've seen
okay,
it.
but
It's a
but
term.
how do you do the mounding calculations? I understand how you do, you know, runoff calculations and all of that.
I can't answer that.
Okay, well, this is why I'm wondering why we're asking. You're saying you as a professional can't answer it, and yet we're asking an
No, I don't
applicant.
do stormwater for a living, Julian. The point of this whole discussion was this. We're not asking them for anything else. They did the mounding analysis one way. Chessie required, or not required. Requested something. What did, I forget what Michael said. It was, I don't know how many times.
12 times. 12 times.
Yeah. So it was extremely conservative. All I wanted to do was to recognize in this order that the peer review consultant had suggested something else.
So why don't I just delete this section right here, and then we just keep the stuff in blue underneath?
Well, I would just change a conservative educated approach. I mean, did he put a number in there, John? I mean, I don't want to get in the weeds, but
A number?
yeah.
Like for what? For the as it pertains to the stormwater standards, he went over kind of what the minimum standards were at the last meeting.
Right, but I mean, the peer reviewer recommended to the commission, right, a more conservative, I wouldn't say educated approach. I would just say more conservative approach.
I was just taking kind of what everybody was talking about. So
yeah,
I personally don't think A belongs in an order of conditions.
This one right here.
Yeah, but I don't even think the one below. I mean, it's like you're saying, please believe us, we did our job. We did our job.
Okay.
No, it was because if something, I mean, going back to the point, if something goes wrong with this system, and somebody looks to the Norton Conservation Commission and says, you approve this, all right, we know it goes back to the PE.
I disagree. We are not offering a guarantee on any part of life. What we have done is looked carefully at a design and decided it meets the requirements. That's all we need to put in. I just think that, you know, people are asking for a guarantee.
Does anyone want me to hit the delete button? Because I will.
I do, but I mean, I'm just.
Please raise your hand if you want me to hit the delete button.
If you're gonna delete it, you gotta delete the whole thing, because it's implied that they met the burden of proof because we're approving it.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. So.
Okay, so strike it. I don't care at this point. I've come full circle. I'm giving you my opinion. You can do whatever the hell you want.
So I guess since it's a consensus, what do the other members feel?
I mean, it's noted in the minutes, I suppose, the conversation that we had. So there is some record of it. I'm okay with including it as long as if we do, it should be, I would recommend we separate it out into another section so we can just clearly identify it as a statement of fact, and would suggest we explicitly say,
So just so that
say that no further action is required based on this.
Right. So these are the stormwater stormwater management findings. Okay. So I need to reorganize some of these sections here, obviously, because they're not all stormwater management, but I will make sure that they get put in the right sections. These are the project findings, and then we have the conservation findings up here. So I separate everything out specifically that way. I guess I need kind of a consensus from the board as to whether we keep this in here or we get rid of it. I mean, this can be modified however we want. It's just the question is, you know, I'm just trying to get a sense from them.
Well, I think as Mark said, anyone who wants to know exactly how much detailed discussion occurred, it's documented in our minutes.
Okay.
Exhaustively. And I don't think we have to include that in the order of conditions. I feel comfortable that the stormwater management standards have been met, and we don't necessarily have to have something indicating that we really discussed it in detail.
All right. I deleted it.
Okay, on to the next one, John. Are we asking them to deliver something? The applicant shall revise the design. So do we want that for review and approval?
For which one? This one?
Yeah.
I'm putting this under the final site plans.
Okay.
So it's going to be 12A, B, and then this is going to be C.
Okay.
So I'm just putting this on here because on that erosion sediment control plan, they're going to want to have all the contractor information and everything if they're not providing a SWIP.
Okay.
So if everyone else is in agreement with that.
Sure.
Good to go.
So I think all the stuff that I've highlighted up here was, you know, needed input from the commission. The rest of it is more so typical with a lot of the other stuff. But if there's any other questions or concerns that anyone may have seen with this, you know, feel free to.
Well, on the copy I have, it's labeled 15. The commission held 12 public hearings.
Yes.
Is it actually 13 now?
Well, it's actually not 12. It's because we had some continuances. So I need to change that.
Okay.
So
that just needs to be revised.
Yeah. The number needs to be changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't find anything else. I don't know, number 40.
40?
Yeah, there shall not be any alteration or beyond the limit of work. I mean, that's
this one? This one here?
Yes. On my copy, it was 40, but it's kind of redundant because the limit of work is the limit of work. It's almost like the projects shall abide by the limit of work designated on the plans, the submitted plans.
I mean, I can strike it. I've always been redundant with this kind of stuff because it always.
Well, I don't think in this case there's any problem in leaving it in there, but it's not necessarily new information because there's a limit of work.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have good instincts there, John. Although I agree with Julian in this case too. But you know, I think better to be exhaustive about what's expected of them. I mean, when we have a case where there was some, not controversy, but well, maybe that is the right word. So better to CYA. I'm sorry?
I don't think it hurts to have it again.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, with regard to this previous discussion, as a commission, we have to be careful that we are not creating new legislation.
That's true.
And this is
Or-
part of the underlying, well, that we are bound by the existing requirements, and if we feel it needs to go further, then we have to start somewhere else. But we can't create new legislation, or at least we're not supposed to.
But we do have to cover ourselves, and one way to do that is by being somewhat exhaustive.
Yes, I understand.
But I see your point. You know, we don't want to entrap ourselves in something that's above and beyond what is needed too. But anyway.
Okay.
So.
Well, I don't know if we've cleared things up to the point where people are happy to vote on this or not.
Good to go. I think we got everything we need. We have all the deliverables, right? Everything we want from them, and it says when, prior to start construction, so.
Do you want me just to go over it one more time? Would that be helpful?
Well,
Lisa says the only thing I would say is, are you comfortable with the notes you took so that things are totally unambiguous to you?
I mean, I have everything highlighted for me to put it in the right locations for issuing an order of conditions. Okay. like we've talked about, we want a final sediment and erosion control plan. That's going to be basically our SWIP. And then we want to have that operation and maintenance plan. Then we also want to have the subsurface soil information provided to us. And then we also want the final site plans having all the stuff that Mike Dryden said that he would get to us as part of the deliverables prior to construction. So I think, that's all going to be in the final construction plans anyway. I think everything is in order. It's for me just to make sure that I'm comfortable with the language that's here. And I think I have enough here to kind of tweak some stuff if needed and move this stuff around and where it needs to go.
Okay, with that said, then potentially someone can offer a motion.
I'll make a motion to issue the order of conditions as discussed for file 250-1108.
Motion made by Lisa and seconded by? Seconded by Ron. Roll call vote beginning with Tama and Lisa. How do you vote?
Aye.
Tama, I didn't catch your was that an aye?
Sorry, yes, I said aye. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Dan and Ron.
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. The motion carries for the modified or amended order of file number 250-1108. Now, technically, it's not on the agenda, but for the town hall project, we did have a draft submitted.
So, John, number 11, we need to turn those into action items when. So they should all read the same for every order, right? I would strike as recommended by HW, and we should just preface it saying that the applicant shall provide for review and approval, and then the list.
Yeah, let me just pull it up on screen. Give me one second.
Okay.
Whoops.
Well, not really a finding, it's an action item, right?
Do you want to make it an action item? It's
It
under
is an
fund-
action item. Yeah, a finding is a statement, right?
Okay.
You're asking them for something. So it's a deliverable, if you will.
Right, and the deliverables are under here.
Okay. So is
So-
that a repetitive list?
Well, it's me acknowledging that the peer review consultant recommended the following items, and we are requesting the following
Oh,
items.
I would just request them. I wouldn't repeat it. But
Okay. So then I won't even acknowledge that the peer reviewer requested it or suggested it.
no, you don't need to, because we're asking them to provide it.
Okay.
Here we go.
And then if that's the case, 11 gets deleted.
Okay. And then I don't know why we have 17 in there. I'm a little confused by that.
Which one?
So if it's already in the general condition. Oh, now it's 16. So number one, it's already a general condition. And we typically don't write about other boards, but I don't know.
Because
Anyway.
I've been having lots of issues with people not going through other boards and not getting approvals and things of that nature. So I just have it in there that they follow through.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Lisa, but I also agree that there can be something of a gaming of the system approach. We've seen that with some of our recent applications. So I don't have any problem with it, although chances are somebody representing the town of Norton isn't going to be gaming the system.
I would hope not.
You know, an alternative is, and I'm sure this language is somewhere, but to just put a general statement at the beginning of our documents saying, please check with other town boards.
You can't say,
Yeah, but-
please check, Dan. That's being too nice.
It's got to be. It's got to be a legal requirement within the text of the order.
Okay. So say, check, you people.
Okay.
I mean, I can delete it. I just know that if I don't make it known, you know, it
There's
becomes-
nothing to say that we can't have it in there, right?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd leave it in there, especially as a notice to people that we're paying attention to what they're doing with the other boards.
Yeah,
If,
it's
you know, if we
already,
can.
it's already a condition. That's my point. It's already-
Oh, gotcha.
already a DEP general condition that comes with every single order that we issue, but
The problem is not everyone knows that general condition number 3 exists.
well, don't they read it at the pre-con meeting? Like they're supposed to and then initial everything?
Well, the problem is if we're already at the pre-con meeting, then there's too many issues. That's why it's better to get it beforehand.
Yeah, okay, I have no preference. I didn't have any other comments, but
All right, well then I guess if no one else has any comments, how does the commission feel?
I would make a motion to issue the order of conditions for 250-1121 as discussed.
Second.
Motion made by Lisa, seconded by Ron, to approve the modified order of conditions for file number 250-1121. Roll call vote beginning with Tama and Lisa.
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
And Dan already has a yes, but how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ron?
Aye.
And Mark? And I'll throw in an aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is draft minutes from last time. I can't vote on it, but we've already reviewed part of it. in terms of, well, town hall, we just went over. And really, town hall and Hill Street were the only two hearings, unless I didn't read this correctly.
Those were the only two hearings.
Yeah. So, well, I certainly don't have any changes since I was unable to attend the meeting, but anybody else have any comments?
No, I don't think I was there either.
Right.
So I'll make a motion, I didn't have any comments, to approve the meeting minutes of, what's the date? January.
Oh, January 23rd. So that
yeah,
was
I didn't get a copy. I didn't get a copy, but I
tell you what, Dan, I can read it to you now.
Dan, you'll have to take it up with Megan.
Yeah, it was on the Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
All right, so Lisa made a motion.
I did.
And to approve, and we have a second from Ron. Now, procedurally, in order to have a quorum, because I have to abstain, Tom has to abstain. So in order to have a quorum, Dan, you're going to have to review that and throw in a vote.
Okay. Well, there's an easy way to do this.
Yeah. We can
just
table it.
We can table it, exactly.
Dan, why don't we table it to the next meeting?
All right. Well, I mean,
no, we just tabled it.
Yeah.
All right.
Dan, it's on the Google Docs drive. Do you not have it?
Okay. I've had trouble getting in there, but I'll try again.
I can email it to you.
Pay Megan a personal visit and get another copy, or you can knock on my door and get another copy.
I think this is one that it won't show my email. That's all right. Yeah, I think this is one that I helped out on. And so if the language seems a little bit strange, or not strange, but different, then it's probably the one I helped out with. And
all right, well, that's good, but we'll go on to report from staff.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Anything to talk about, John?
I had a wonderful vacation.
Oh, excellent. So, will you reveal where you went?
I went to the Turks and Caicos.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, we had a great time, my wife and I. So it was wonderful. So it was a good break.
Excellent.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Dan.
I was just going to note that John does not seem tanned. Were you inside a lot? Didn't you get out on
maybe
the beach?
Dan, I have fair skin. You might not know this, but I was naturally born redhead, so I burn very easily. So 100 proof sunscreen goes
oh my goodness,
everywhere it possibly can. So, but yeah, I try to minimize my sun exposure when I was down there.
Well, you'll live longer for the little one, so
yeah,
good for you.
Exactly.
And believe it or not, Dan, and I know you do, not everybody embraces tanning as a value.
I haven't been tan in years.
There you go. So anything else on the old business list that we should discuss?
As of right now, no. I mean, I've got some other stuff internally that I'm dealing with work stuff, trying to get everything together with some grants potentially coming up. I have a couple seminars that I'm going to, trying to get some, got a grant seminar that I'm going to at the end of the month for 30 potential grants to be seeking funding for environmental and also for trails and everything that has to do with Conservation Commission. So looking forward to that and socializing and getting to know some people in the field. So it's going to be a very good opportunity for hopefully the town of Norton.
Excellent. All right, any further items?
John, is there any movement on the rail trail starting?
Yeah, so that's supposed to be starting up soon. I've got some feedback. They actually reached out to me about a potential pre-construction meeting at the end of this month or early March. So
Okay.
we're looking
Excellent.
forward. We're looking forward to that, and hopefully we can start going with that.
All right, so we can consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
and that's all we need.
All right. Thank
See
you,
guys
everybody.
next time.
Right.
Dan,
Thank you, everyone.
Here.
Record.